It's a rainy Wednesday here in Baltimore. So we're happy that you're spending the next hour getting the best of news and entertainment with us. It's time for pop and politics. I'm KJ, and without further ado, let me introduce the rest of the co-hosts. We have T.
Hi.
Yes. So Yana is off tonight, but she will be back with us next week. All right, so join the conversation by leaving a comment on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. We will check the comments periodically throughout the show. And don't just comment, subscribe. Subscribe to our social media so you always know when we post new content. Also, check out our website, www.metroconservativemedia.com, for up-to-date information. We are a necessary voice in news and entertainment. All right, ladies, let's set it off. Okay, so we are talking, our first topic tonight is about Baltimore. Where is the village? In a city like Baltimore, where murders of children happen and people don't act, where do we define the community? How should community exist to prevent these type of incidents from happening? So I want to start with you, Shelly. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I just want to mention, like you were alluding to, there have been a number of particularly teenagers and young children who have been murdered in Baltimore over the last month and certainly over the last 2 weeks. In particular, one story comes to mind of the two young preschoolers or certainly elementary age students, school children, who were murdered by their mother. And the poignancy of that story, beyond just the anger and the frustration, is that when it was reported in one of the articles, is that the children were screaming like "no, mommy" or "stop" or "no," and these children were screaming. And a neighbor, at least one neighbor, was reported that he heard the children, but never even called police. So, as horrific as these murders are, it got me to thinking, or at least asking questions. At what point do we get involved? And should we get involved? Or, as some people say, it's not your business. Mind your business. But when there are children or defenseless people involved that are being murdered, that are being harmed, what is our moral responsibility as a community? As a neighbor, even when you hear the screams from children who are being harmed and murdered by their mother.
Okay. Yeah. What are your thoughts on this, Xandria? What do you feel as though is the state of this type of situation? Are we able to comment on things like this? And if we are, do we comment?
Yeah, I think that's a really sad situation that Shelly was talking about. I think part of it goes to the fact that right now it seems that everybody's very isolated and nobody wants to get involved in anybody else's business. And to an extent, that is okay. But when you hear something that sounds alarming and that sounds like something wrong is going on, like something wrong is going on. And I think, perhaps part of it, and maybe this is everywhere, but particularly in the city, might be some of the cultural, like, hey, I don't want to snitch attitude. I don't want to bring in the police, or I don't want to bring in, other people into the situation, that type of attitude. And I think a lot of the, when we talk about like, what is community responsibility? Well, I think you have to start to build these communities as a neighborhood. There's a lot of different areas where you can focus on building community. And I think that's really important that they have those communities, especially in the inner cities. And that would be in the neighborhood, amongst the schools and the parents. I think they need to bring the police back in, but do so in a way where those police members become part of the actual communities. There should be a neighborhood police for every neighborhood. right? Somebody that the shop owners know, somebody that the members of that neighborhood feel like are part of, their family with that neighborhood.
Okay. Yeah. What are your thoughts on this, T, as far as are we in a situation, like I know back in the day where you had people, you knew your neighbor, you knew the community, you knew somebody in the neighborhood was always, sitting at the window or at the door. Is that still the communities that we have going on right now, that you see or that you've heard of?
I think it depends on the community. It depends on your neighborhood, because all of the neighborhoods that I've lived in, even being from the South and moving up here, we've looked out for each other. I am that person who's, well, not necessarily sitting at the window, but if I see something, I'm going to say something. I'm that person that if I'm driving along the road and something looks suspicious, well, call me a Karen, but I'm not I'm not going to stop them, but I am going to say something. And so I just think that if we treat people how we want to be treated in our own communities, then I think we look out more for each other. I think maybe the no snitching rule, it kind of is overcompensated for the lack of community, so to speak.
How do you define community? How do you define community as far as is it just who you live around, or is it people that share your moral values? Because that's something that's kind of questionable now. I know a couple Sundays ago, my pastor preached about it, saying now we are no longer defined by community by ethnicity, because that's something people used to define community, but now people that look like you may not share the same values, may not share the same morals as you. People who live near you may not feel share the same values or morals. So how do you guys define community?
So I'm going to take a stab at this. It's not. I agree with your pastor. It's not. I don't think it's only about ethnicity, or even today it may hardly be about ethnicity. But the community starts with a shared set of values. So a shared set of mores, as it's also called. But if we don't have those shared set of values, maybe not every dot and every tittle has to be shared or that we agree on. But if we don't have the value, certainly that innocent people, defenseless people need to be protected, even by their own parents and family, then we definitely don't have a community. When we allow the youngest and the most defenseless in our society to be victimized, even by people who look like them or who share their DNA, something is wrong. And I think part of this as well, to what T was saying about the snitching culture, the lack of protest or apathy about this murder or these murders of these children, to me speaks volume that we are living in this, this surreal situation where we allow even the murders of the other young people over the last few weeks. There has hardly been a peep, if you will. There have been, their communities or their families and things had vigils, but from the community at large, from the city at large, we have had a number of murders, not to mention of young people, and there has been almost silence, a response of silence to say, oh, well, they're just going to be buried and that's it, and move on to the next murder. No, a community starts with values at first.
Well, with all the murders, have we become desensitized? What do you guys think of? Is that what it is?
We have.
Yeah.
This generation and the generations after us we have the computers, we have technology, and we have access to a whole bunch of information that just desensitizes us, and it makes us inhumane almost, so to speak. We have these video games where you're shooting and killing everyone, and we have people going live killing and shooting people. So it's not really much of a community as a whole when you look at it, now that we have technology. And I think that we can all use a bit of life skills and a bit of some type of compassion to in order to be able to see and understand what's really going on around us.
I think it's not just desensitivity, but and I think that is a part of it, but also that people are afraid to speak out and to act out and to do the right thing. I mean, just even going beyond the neighborhood, right, or a local community. I was talking with my boyfriend about this. In the past month, he would be on the highway and he sees somebody on the side struggling, and he'll pull over and offer a hand. And every single time, those people have been like, and this has happened probably like 3 times in the past month, they're like, wow, like nobody, I've been here for hours, like nobody has helped me. It's uncommon now to like pull over when you see somebody, because people are scared of being liable. They don't want to, they don't want to be involved in anything that could implicate them later, or they don't know how somebody's going to react to their help.
Yeah, I think we have to use intuition when we, because if we're good Samaritans, we can't turn it off and turn it on. We just have to know when to, or who to pick up or who to help, instead of just trying to help everyone or help no one. I think we just have to use our discernment and intuition and choosing that. Because I still help people. If I see old people walking in the street, like I'm going to stop and take them, hey, where you going? Just because I would want it done to me, for one, and then 2, it's an old lady and she's on a stick. She shouldn't be walking this far. But you just have to use, know who to help.
Okay. And maybe
use your street sense.
Right. And I think too, it's a little bit more of technology. Now, before we used to have so many cars would break down. You had different situations where, people didn't have AAA. You didn't have any type of roadside assistance. Now that's much more prevalent. So a lot of people are waiting for the roadside assistance. A lot of people may not need assistance like they used to back in our parents' age or grandparents' age. So technology, I think, is a big part of it. But with technology and so many different types of technology, I think it's actually it's taking away community. It's taking away, the idea of you leaning on your neighbor, and now we lean on this technology. Look at the Ring and Amazon. Before you knock on your neighbor's door and you say, hey, I have a package coming. Can you look out for it? Or can I leave this package here? Now, a lot of people don't even do that. They have this Amazon, they have Ring, so they can hear the package from work or wherever they are on vacation, let the person in, and then they come in and leave it. No more having to lean on their neighbors and things like that. We've seen a lot of that with the pandemic also. So
even with GPS, like I was trying to think, like, what did we do before we had the GPS? Oh, we had maps. I don't even remember how to follow a map.
I still have a map in my car, but I do. I actually do. But
I believe that.
Yeah, I can see that.
Xandria, one of the things you said I think is important to this aspect of community, or I'm not about snitching and defunding the police. So when the community also feels that there's no protection for them to even take that risk to defend a defenseless person, then all of these other things that we're calling for, this is what contributes to that. If we defund the police, then who are we going to call to actually protect and help protect those who are defenseless?
Yeah, I think building off of that, it's also what we mentioned before with the neighborhoods being so important and building that community. It really is, especially in areas where there is gang violence and other violence that occurs, because at the end of the day, the people in the neighborhood, they know who are the troublemakers of the neighborhood, and they know who are not the troublemakers of the neighborhood, So you have to create that that sense of community so that you can protect each other and keep each other safe.
All right. Well, we again will continue to check this and go back to this topic. Please again join the conversation by leaving comments on our Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. We will check the comments periodically throughout the show. And while you're commenting, don't forget to subscribe. That way you get all of our new content. We also have our website at www.metroconservativemedia.com. All right, so now we are moving on to our pop-off round. So this is our,
doing that. I missed it.
Yes, we are popping off. This is our rapid fire round. So you ladies will answer in 30 seconds or less. So today we're starting off with Xandria. So according to the Baltimore Sun, conservative politician Kimberly Klacik has filed a lawsuit against conservative media host Candace Owens for $20 million in damages due to a video that Owens posted on her Instagram account that allegedly said that Klacik committed campaign fraud, money laundering, illegally using drugs, and was a madam of a strip club. What are your thoughts on the latest in their feud? And what do you feel will be the repercussions to their conservative platforms based on the outcome of this lawsuit?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's really unfortunate that there's this back and forth going on between them. I have a lot of respect for both of them. I know Kim personally. I think she's a great person. I've always liked Candace's platform. I wish that they didn't take it to this point that they did, and I don't think it helps either of them. In the end, I mean, both of them have unique styles. I think both of the avenues that they're taking are important because the Conservative Party, as we've discussed many times, is very diverse. It's very broad, especially as it has become more centralized. There's all sorts of different perspectives and views on how to even approach gaining votes and growing the party. So I think both of them are really essential. As far as the lawsuit, I think Candace was very careful in the way she stated her. I wouldn't even say they were claims because she stated everything in a way that essentially protected herself from a suit of defamation. I don't know where that's going to go. I just wish that they would. I would rather see them work together than going at each other. I don't think it helps the party, and I think they're both essential. So.
Okay, and then what's the fallout because of this on their platforms? Do you think either of them or both of them will have any repercussions due to this feud?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're both going to hit. There's people that are Candace lovers and there's people that are Kim lovers. So they're both going to lose support from the opposite community. They're both going to lose some reputation from the opposite community. I think the claims were harsher against Kim. So I think it's important for her to, and I know she's already done this, but just to go in detail and address each one. And maybe she wants to pursue the legal route first, but I think that'll be important for her as far as, reaching the people that now have whatever views they have as a result of this conflict, right? Okay. So I think that would be really beneficial if she did that. But they both have my support, so.
All right. Moving on to the next one. So the next pop-off, answer in 30 seconds or less. So actress Sarah Paulson is playing Linda Tripp, the whistleblower involved in the Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky scandal of 1998 in the upcoming season of American Crime Story, Impeachment. Linda Tripp was a plus-size woman, and Sarah Paulson is skinny in real life. So she had to wear a fat suit and facial prosthetics to make her appear fat. Now she is facing backlash for being chosen because people feel they should have hired a naturally fat person to play the role, because fat people are always left out of the conversation surrounding media representation. Do you believe it's wrong or unfair to hire a skinny person to play a fat person for a movie or TV role? Why or why not? This goes to you, T.
Hire an actress to play a part. I mean, that's the whole point of knowing how to being talented in acting. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if they're fat, skinny. I mean, race might play a part, but if they're fat or skinny, if they can put on the suit, the fat suit, why not? If she can act, no, it's not wrong. And people need to shut up. People need to stop being so sensitive about everything. If we say something about fat people, oh, we're fat shaming. If we say something about skinny people, oh, we're weight shaming. Like, just be quiet and let the arts stay arts. Like, we're dabbling too much into arts business. First of all, even with the comedians. Now the comedians can't be straightforward with their comedy acts because everybody's so sensitive. Just leave the arts alone, because I'm a fan of the arts. Leave them alone. Let people wear fat suits. Let people put on wigs. That's theatrics. Like, they need to get paid too. So just leave them alone. It's not wrong. No.
All right. And last,
it's gonna be wrong to actually have to do a whole show on an impeachment concerning Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton. That's what's wrong.
Oh, well, that was a scandal. That was
a scandal. That's what I mean.
All right. And lastly, so Arne Duncan He is a former U.S. Education Secretary in the Obama administration, has slammed anti-maskers and foes of the COVID-19 vaccine for insisting that they are fighting for freedom in a tweet. He wrote, "Have you noticed how strikingly similar both the mindsets and actions between the suicide bombers at Kabul's airport and the anti-mask and anti-vax people here?" First, this goes to Shelly. How do you feel about this comparison that he made? And what is your response to it?
Well, former Secretary Army Duncan, I don't say this for a lot of people, but I would say for that comment, I think he's a buffoon. Okay, I think it is. I think it is not only outrageous. I think it is so disrespectful to our servicemen and women who have been victims of the evil known as suicide bombers. So for him to even compare that, I don't have a problem with anyone thinking or saying, "Look, I'm glad he said it because that way he can be called out on it." So that's fine. But when you say something as outrageous and as disrespectful as that, it shows I don't even know, the degrading, if you will, or the debasing of the thought. Just to have people, just because people think differently than you about masks or vaccines, does not make them a suicide bomber. How evil, how petty do you take something like a mask or a vaccine and compare it to terrorists actually blowing up people and beheading them?
Yeah. I couldn't believe the comparison. It's despicable, and it goes to show how far we have come from, just like you mentioned, free thought. I mean, people, you compare. I understand people they claim because that you're not wearing the mask. This is, you're killing people, or you're spreading the virus. You're not getting the vaccine. You're spreading the virus. But to compare it to suicide bomb, this was actually shocking to me.
Suicide bombers. Yeah. To me, it does. It shows the utter disregard and disrespect, particularly for our servicemen and women who have been victims of terrorism, of Islamic jihadism. That just shows the utter disregard for them. And to me, it also speaks, and I know he's not a part of this administration, but to me, it's just another example of what has been allowed under this pathetic administration.
All right. Again, please, guys who are watching, join the conversation by leaving a comment on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. We will check the comments periodically throughout the show. Do you have a question that you'd like to hear answered by one of the co-hosts? Email me at kj@metroconservativemedia.com. We will ask the co-host your question during our pop-off segment. All right, so we are moving right along to topic 2. So it's funny, we just ended our pop-off round with Afghanistan. So this is actually, our next topic is talking about Afghanistan. Basically, as everyone has been watching over the last couple of weeks, and President Biden has declared, we have left Afghanistan. The evacuation was a mess. He declared it a triumph. So what I want to hone in on this, though, is what does it feel like being an American now after knowing what just happened in Afghanistan? We'll start right back off with you, Shelly.
How does it feel as an American? Number one, let me say this. As an American, I am always grateful and honored to be an American. But at this point, because of this evacuation or this dismantling or whatever word they want to use to say that the pullout from Afghanistan, I think as an American, I am embarrassed. I am embarrassed. I'm angry. My emotions run the gamut because I'm thinking of the long-term effects of having our troops totally removed from Afghanistan, number one. And number two, that we actually left Americans and other allies stranded. I know Jen Psaki said that, no one is stranded. Only people who want to leave were able to leave. But we left people there stranded. This is going to have repercussions in the worst kind of way for us as a society. We are no longer looked at as the free mantle of carrying the free mantle around the world. We are being laughed at. China and Russia are salivating over what we did and the way we did it. We can disagree on whether or not we should have been there, but we certainly will probably disagree about the way we left. I know this administration is putting all kinds of spins and lies on it, but what we did was disgraceful. When we have to have private people, some military, former military, all kinds of intel people having private planes to go in there and rescue Americans and other Afghanis and allies who were stranded. When we left, all the other NATO allies left too. Why? Because we were the backbone. We're the ones who had the umph, if you will, the power and the platform to say, let's carry this mission. It's disgraceful. We will have repercussions, and not only will we've already had them, because the Taliban and the bombers have already started as of last week.
All right. And I want to go to you, Xandria. How do you feel as far as safety? Do you has this had any impact on you as far as your safety, or do you feel like we're going to have another 9/11? Do you feel safe for your safety here or abroad? How does that make you feel as far as what happened?
I think I echo a lot of how Shelly feels about it. Like, this is a devastating. There are privileges you will always have as an American, but the way that this was handled, it's devastating. A lot of my family came through. Everybody in my family is immigrants. My boyfriend's an immigrant too. And when you come as an immigrant, you have so much pride to be an American. And the way things are handled right now, it's all swept away. I mean, we have the problems at the border right now. The way that they were evacuating too, because it was so disorganized, there are national security concerns now. They could very well, it's going to be very easy for the wrong people to enter into the country. Meanwhile, we're leaving tons of individuals back in Afghanistan. I think the number was like, in addition to the 13 veteran deaths, which is really, really sad, I think it's about 170 Afghan deaths, which includes people that were U.S. green card holders, U.S. allies. I mean, we just left all of these people behind. But to answer your question specific to security, I mean, there are definitely national security threats. Where I am located right now, the places that are going to be hurt by this most are always going to be the places that are already hurting in the United States, the areas along the border and the inner cities. Because every time people funnel in these areas that are already congested and already don't have the resources to help the current citizens, now are become even more congested and even more lacking the resources. So, I don't think Biden has any control over national foreign policy. Under Trump, I was very, very, very proud to be an American. And it's funny because you always had people on the left that would make statements like, oh no, we're the laughing stock of the world. Other countries don't respect us. And that is so not true. And then now you have where the Taliban has, I believe, about $85 billion worth of U.S. equipment, military equipment that they're now terrorizing their own people with. And you think that, they have no way of getting here too. We left them tons and tons of helicopters. And some, I don't know if you probably did, but some of the videos, like they're driving our helicopters, our U.S. helicopters, and hanging people from them. Like, it's so horrific. It's so terrible.
Yeah. It's tragic. And I want to get your perspective though, T, because I know I think you've mentioned in the past that you have friends and that are Muslim, and you have practiced Islam in the past. What is your perspective on this? As far as, I know you wanted to get out of Afghanistan, but how do you feel going forward as an American? in regards to what just happened from the perspective?
Well, I have never practiced Islam.
I'm sorry.
I was actually living the Black Jewish lifestyle.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I do have family members who are Muslim, and I do actually respect the Muslim religion.
Of course.
Very much so. But as far as your question, I don't, there are radicals in everything. And I don't really place the Taliban I don't correlate the Taliban with Muslims, even though they are. I just know that they're radicals. So I don't believe that the Muslim faith is like this and killing people and doing these things. There are people, even Christians, that have killed in the name of Jesus and that type of thing. So I don't really correlate Muslim with Taliban pessimistically. But I will say that I kind of think differently than the other ladies because despite everyone, the Americans being killed over there, we know the number of Americans that are stranded over there because we're saying all of these Americans, but, we don't know the numbers. I mean, if we do, I don't know. We don't know the numbers for one. And then two, I mean, we shouldn't have been over there anyway, but I don't think that it's fair to say because when Trump did it, Trump was getting people out. We should have been out. So Trump was getting people out. Trump had people out. So I don't understand why it's a problem now that we've gotten out the way that we have.
Well,
because we needed to be out anyway.
Well, but this is the thing though. Biden and Trump both wanted to evacuate. I agree with you. We should have never been there in the first place. Created more instability in the region than there already was. It made us dependent on natural resources there. The Middle East is rich with natural resources. The Middle East has every reason to be thriving, for all of its citizens to be thriving, and the governments keep that from their people. And then we became reliant. But with what you were saying, T, yes, both Biden and Trump wanted to leave Afghanistan. That is one thing that they had in common. But the manner Trump in the year of 2020, I want to say 2020, 2021, 2021, I'll have to confirm the year, but the last year, there were no combat deaths, military deaths while Trump was in office. And we still had the plan to evacuate our soldiers, but it was a contingent plan. So essentially, if the Taliban did something that was not allowed, then we were going to stay there longer because we were not going to allow them control over the region or over our troops or any of that. The way Biden exited the country is just, it was so chaotic. He had every opportunity to get all of the Americans and our allies and so many people out safely before our troops exited. But instead, he just said, okay, we're all leaving. And it was just complete chaos. So, I mean, I think there's a huge difference in Trump's exit strategy where we had no combat deaths for a whole year versus Biden's where this is where we are right now.
What is your response to that, T?
I mean, it's still the same. We need to exit out of that. We did get out, but I see what you're saying, that there was a plan, and there should have been a plan. But from what I understand, that plan had an expiration date, and that's when Taliban decided, all right, y'all, time is up. We're taking over, and now we weren't prepared, like you said, or organized to leave out, but we still had to get out, and I think the conservatives are making a bigger issue out of it because it's Biden. But if Trump had did it, it would have been heroic, so to speak. So there was an agreement.
So you believe that, I just want to make sure I understand. So what has transpired over the past 2 weeks or so? You feel like this was a clean evacuation. You feel like none of this could have been avoided, T. Is that what
I'm not saying it could have been avoided. I mean, I'm sure it could have been better planned and better organized. But from my understanding, we knew the time limit. We knew the expiration. Mm-hmm. We just didn't follow up. And so this is where Biden dropped the ball, because he didn't go according to the plan, the peace agreement that was already, that we were supposed to exit, I think in
originally it was a contingent exit. So originally it was May, but it was if X, Y, and Z rules are broken, then this date is extended. So I agree that when we leave the country, ultimately, there's bound to be it's a destabilized region, right? Us leaving there's going to be some instability either way. Mm-hmm. But the way that it happened, I think, is very extreme. And if that had happened under Trump, and I really genuinely don't believe it ever would have, because Trump was very, very firm with his stance, and right. The Taliban knew that there would be severe repercussions. I mean, knowing Trump, he would have just, hit the same way he did, not to go into the whole other thing, but the same way he did with Soleimani, right? He hit one target without civilian casualties. That's who, he targeted.
Even like, right? You have military experts across the board. I think they said 90 military generals or former generals said that the way that the Biden administration pulled out, forget the dates,
right?
The way that they pulled out was a disaster. Moving the troops out before you move out the American green card holders, citizens, was a mess and should have never happened. So, I mean, they're calling this, I have here, I just want to read this to you very quickly. Deontay Johnson from the Black Conservative Federation. He says, while the Taliban throw military parade with U.S. equipment, please keep this in mind. Again, I don't, as far as my memory serves me, I don't recall seeing the Taliban parading around with American military uniforms and armor and helicopters. Yesterday, Biden got on TV and said the withdrawal from Afghanistan was extraordinary success. The lie detector test determined that was a lie. Mm-hmm. There are still Americans stranded, at least 200 that has been reported. That's what we know. Mm-hmm. They don't even know how many Americans are there. This is the number, so it's probably much more. Taliban is now in possession of $83 billion of U.S. military equipment, fully functional U.S. military bases, 600,000 U.S. weapons, 75,000 U.S. vehicles, 200 U.S. aircraft, over 90 million rounds of U.S. ammunition. This is either the most incompetent mistake in history, not pulling out, but the way it was done, or a gift from the Biden administration. Right. I know we lost you, right. T. Can you just comment on that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Shelly.
Yeah, I want to address something. Yeah, I want to address something that T mentioned, which is not even true. She mentioned that there were Christians who are murdering people outside of the Crusades during I think that was the 11th to the 13th century. Outside of the Crusades, as an organized group, Christians are not organized from a government perspective, going around the world beheading and executing people. No, that's not true. Now, are there individual people who say that they are Christians that go out and do horrendous things? Absolutely, as that would be in any group of people. So to say that about Christians is not true at all. Number two, to Xandria, what natural resources are we gaining, or are we using from Afghanistan by being there? The only resource that I can think of that Afghanistan has is heroin, the poppy seed.
Opium.
Now, unless they're right, exactly. And so we get the opium, but other than that, I mean, we already know the consequences of that. Now, we can debate that, but as far as, again, this evacuation, the pullout was horrendous, and it was beyond incompetent. Not only that, the third thing you just mentioned, or KJ, when you just read that statement, the 200 plus people that are there. Not only that, this administration gave the Taliban lists with names on them of the people who are in the country. So the people who are left, they are at a heightened sense of risk even now, because they can be hunted down and they will be executed en masse with no qualms about it. And we may not even know about it. Well, yeah, with our equipment. And I've heard people say, well, the equipment might break down and, they won't be able to replace it. But guess what? We have this thing called the internet. You better believe that Russia and China know how to fix and repair and replenish the equipment that we left there.
Yeah, I agree. It's all about the way. It's not about whether we should have been there or not, whether we should have evacuated or not. The criticism is specifically about the way that we exited the country. And I think it's very telling when you watch the media right now, when you watch social media, even in the corporate world, the fact that people have been utterly silent about Afghanistan, all the people that are virtue signalers about everything else, they're quiet right now. And I was talking to somebody, one of my business connections the other day, and he was telling me that he was just let go of his company. It's a Fortune 100 company that's owned by Fortune 500 company owned by two Fortune 100 companies that are very well known, big public names. And they let him go because he essentially expressed that, that the company should either not be political at all, or they should be equally political and be as equally outraged about everything that's going on in Afghanistan as they were about George Floyd, right? And they're selectively outraged. And he was let go from his company for that. And he said, my kind of patriot, my kind of American, which is a patriot, a Latino, a conservative, a combat veteran, and an outspoken person, is not the kind of person that they want to apply to their company. They only want, what he said, the sheep to apply. And I just think that's very telling.
Yeah, well, we definitely have seen that where, conservatives who speak out on certain issues are blackballed. And then you have people who, on the left who speak out about different issues, but they're just as divisive. They're not said, people don't say anything to them about that. So,
right, but everybody should be outraged about the fact that, it's a bipartisan issue. We have stranded Americans and American allies in a country. We have given our enemy weapons, and we're enabling them to take over. So, it should be a public outcry by both sides.
All right. Well, we will continue to follow this story, and of course, our prayers are with those who have been injured, who have lost loved ones, lost lives in this evacuation, people who are still there dealing with this. You are in our constant prayers. So again, please continue to comment on this. We are checking the comments throughout the night. Like, share, and subscribe Subscribe to this video on YouTube and Facebook. Also share this on your platforms. Again, we love the feedback, and we will continue to monitor the comments throughout the night. All right. So we are moving right along to our next topic. So I want you guys to check out this clip with Marlon Wayans, and we'll be back to discuss in a moment.
Recently, my mom passed, and on her deathbed, I said, "Can I tell you something, woman?" She was in a lot of pain, and she was, fighting to stay alive or fighting to go. And I said, I'm 47 years old, and I've never been married. Yeah. Because I always wanted you to be my number one girl. And my mother turned over. She looked at me, and she grabbed my hand. She pulled me close to her. I said, "I know. I love you too." And I gave her a kiss. And I said, "I'll see you soon." But not that soon, because I got a life to live. And she laughed in pain. I gave her a kiss. And those were my last words to my mom. And that's the truth. I never got married because I knew my mom needed me. I always want to be women sometimes want to battle for your attention. They want to battle for your love. They want to be the one. Man, my mama here, she the one.
All right. His mama is the one. What do you think about that? I'll start with you, T. The idea that
it's some form of sickness. It has to be, because your mama is your mama, and and I know we have some mothers that actually think that their sons are their everything because maybe they didn't have a father in their lives, and it's an unhealthy relationship to make your son the man of the house and the king of the house, because he's not. It makes no room for a husband, so it's kind of unhealthy. But your mother is your mother, your son is your son, and there's some type of foresight that you should have for your next generation to leave your mother, leave your parents, and go on to your next generation. Like I don't get that. That's sick to me.
Okay. So, Xandria, I mean, would you go so far as to saying this type of talk is sick, or what do you feel about him having this relationship with his mother and wasn't even talked to? His mother was the number one lady in his life, so
Yeah.
he didn't have a girlfriend because his mother was his number one lady, and of course, a woman isn't going to deal with that. What are your thoughts? Is this sick?
So it's funny because in that specific clip that was just played, it didn't sound as intense, I feel like, as in part of the longer clip I saw, where it really did seem like, hey, my mom is the only woman in my life ever. Look, I agree. Your mom is your mom, and I'm glad he is reserving that space in his heart for her. But I would really doubt that she wouldn't want him to let other women into his life or other love into his life. From the standpoint of, hey, taking care of my mom if she had special needs or something like that, especially in her older age where he just really didn't have time to date, right? And that's what his time commitment went to. I can understand that, right? Your mother raises you, your parents make you into who you are, and I think we owe all of our parents a lot for their sacrifices, but at the same time, like, it's healthy to have relationships with a lot of people in your life, like to have different relationships for different things. You have your parents, and then you have your love life. As long as it's not a romantic relationship with his mother, then
I don't think he was romantic.
Right.
I don't think it was romantic. But that thinking, I mean, you all believe that is a thinking that is negative. It's not good to think that way when you about your mom, especially when you have it, when you juxtapose that to a relationship with a significant other.
I think you have to have a healthy balance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a place for your mom and your dad, right? And then there's a place for your significant other. And they both need to, you just have to have that balance, he shouldn't base who he dates specifically on, if his mother, I don't know, I guess it's hard to say, right? Because everybody wants the approval of their parents for who they date. But it didn't seem like his mom doesn't want him to have relationships with anyone else.
My thing is, his mother had her own husband. He didn't have to be that for her. He didn't have to not marry someone to take care of her or whatever, because she had her own husband to take care of her.
Now he put it on himself.
Yeah, focused on himself. And I mean, he has children. He's had a long time woman, his children's mother, but I guess he chose not to marry her. But I'm like, that doesn't even make sense to me, because she had her own husband. She wasn't tripping.
Yeah, and I don't know anything about his wife,
all those children.
Beyond what was shown in the clip, but
well, what about if you have a guy whose mom is maybe a widower, or she doesn't have a husband, so she may.
It's not a child's responsibility. It's not a child's responsibility. Actually, it really is not a child's responsibility to ensure the emotional security of their parents. That is so sick and twisted, that clip. I didn't even know he was not married. I thought, a lot of the Wayans brothers, I thought they were, but that is a twisted mindset. We live in an upside down world today. It is the parents' responsibility to train and guide children to actually leave the home and go and start their own families. It is not the child's responsibility to ensure that parents are emotionally stable.
Okay. And what about when you have people who you have this thing where people say men don't respect women, or and so some people look at a relationship like this and say, wow, you have the thing where people say, well, if he treats his mother like this, I know he'll treat a woman like this. What do you guys say to that? You think that's?
I mean, I know.
Look,
some
I
women.
think when women and men are, sorry. Okay, so I think when women are, I guess, assessing a man for a husband and vice versa, those are characteristics you're looking for. How they treat their mom, how they treat other women, their sisters, whomever, how they treat brothers and fathers. Those are characteristics that you can check off the values box to see, to compare, to see if they are just generally going to be able to be a husband or wife. But that does not mean that a child is responsible for the parent. It goes the other way around.
I think if you really think about it, like, is he now dating now that his mother passed? Like, wouldn't she have wanted to be at his wedding?
Well, we never said that she didn't want. No, so we don't want to infer that. So it didn't. No one said that
this was all on
his
him.
mother was pushing.
No, I know. I know. I'm just saying though, like, if I would want my parents to be at my wedding versus have a wedding after they're gone. You know what I mean? So like, I don't understand his psychology around it. There's love, there's care, there's romance, and then there's like obsession. And I don't know, it just seems a little borderline.
Well,
like I think
he may have had, in his case, he may have had an attachment to his mother because they had the same birthday. So, and I think he was one of the younger siblings as well. So maybe there's a mama's boy thing that going on there. And for the record, no woman likes a mama's boy.
No.
So I can only imagine the women that he was dating. If this is how he feels towards his mother, then that's unattractive anyway. But
what are some characteristics of a mama's boy? If you could explain, because some people may.
Their mother controls them. They have no say so in their own lives because their mother is one that.
Can I say something for? Okay, yeah, a mama's boy, somebody who never leaves, who is always babied, and he got to run to mama for everything to work out his life. Basically, he can't function on his own. Okay, that's a mama's boy, a beta male, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to call it. But to say that because he shared a birthday with his mom, well, then does that mean that daughters who share birthdays with their moms are homosexual? I mean, come on. A lot of children happen to share a birthday with their parent. It does not mean that their relationship is supposed to be almost somewhat, if you want to call it, incestuous without the sex. So, and Xandria, to your point about the psychology, you don't have to understand the psychology. This is what it is. He has many children, or however many children he has out of wedlock. So therefore, there's no need for him to be married. The desire or the need for him to be married to before having children, that's already been met. So therefore, there's no need for him. There's no I don't know what you want to call it, no impetus to him to be married. That's why.
Okay. Right. Like I don't know his background or family life, so that makes me wonder: is he using his mom? I would like to think he's genuine and hurtful
as an excuse, right?
Is he using her as an excuse to not have a mother to his kids because he already has kids, right? I didn't even know kids were in the picture. That changes my view.
They're older.
I'm more critical of him now. But again, I say, like, you have to have a happy balance.
It kind of goes back to the community topic, what we were talking about earlier.
Well, and let's go to the comments, because we do have one here. Giovanni Patterson, he says, let me see here. Marlon showed the world a textbook beta male. So would you guys classify him as a beta male?
I'm not too. I don't really know this new technology, these new vocabulary words that they have with betas and alphas. And I mean, I know what alpha male looks like, but betas and omegas and all of that stuff. But I would think that he showed the world a crazy son. He showed the world. He exposed the unhealthy relationships between mother and daughter. I'm sorry, mother and son. Sometimes, most times, it's the mother who's actually the one doing too much and saying, oh, my son is the head of the household, my son is this, my son is that. But he flipped it on us, and that's unusual.
Yeah. And one thing, well, beta male, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the term where they say a weak man. So somebody who is not an in control type of man. And so I guess they're saying, I guess Giovanni is saying that any man that puts his mother before his girlfriend or his wife is a beta male.
Yeah.
You all agree with that?
Well,
No,
I think you always have your
the only thing, well, I shouldn't say the only thing, but what makes him appealing is that he has money. What makes him appealing is that he has money, and he comes from a family that's very prominent and popular. That makes him appealing. But the fact that
I had a crush on him until then, until he said that.
I
when
did
he was
too.
in Living Color and Brothers, that show, I was like, I mean, the Wayans brother, I was like, okay, Marlon was my pick, but that turned me off, all the way off.
Yeah, it was definitely extreme.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of feel like we're being a little harsh. I definitely agree that the comments.
Why?
Yes, I agree that the comments that he made were a little off and a little extreme.
Not wrong.
Yeah, I wouldn't go so far as to say incestuous,
Right.
but I would say I definitely don't think it was a healthy relationship to have, just based off of what we saw. But I mean, I don't mind a guy just showing love for his mother, respect for his mother.
No, not at all.
Yeah, of course.
Not at all. But there's a line, because he has so many other siblings, and
Right.
I don't know if the other siblings think the same
That's
way.
different.
So why him of all of the siblings
AJ,
thinks like, oh, I don't want to get married.
Respect and love for your mother. They are one things to do.
Oh, you're breaking up there,
But
Shelly.
to say that you will not get married because your mom occupies that place in that first place, that is almost incestuous without.
Well, I think, honestly,
that's a baby boy mentality there.
Right. And I think, though, that there is two things going on here. One, yes, he is a mama's boy. And two, he's the youngest child.
Right.
So there may be some sort of spoiling there. I'm sure he was mama's baby, youngest child. So I think those two things coupled create a disaster.
Look, I know somebody who isn't as wealthy as him, right? But he's in a situation where he has to take care of his mom, and he had been divorced in the past, and he has given up, dating life essentially in order to take care of his mom. And I think this situation is different, though, because I think his situation is different because he's a primary caretaker and he just doesn't have the bandwidth, right? If that was this guy's situation, then I would understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like he's just putting these blocks in front of himself, like, mentally, I'm not allowed to date anyone else because it's just my mom.
No, he'll date. He just won't marry.
And not only that, but are we looking at this through the lens of a American lens? Because the dynamics between within a family, immigrants, and westernized people are very different. For instance, a lot of Asian families, even into adulthood, all live in the same home.
Yeah, but they don't have children. If that's the case, don't have children out of wedlock. So it's different than you staying with your parents until you marry, and that way you can, it's a family structure, family environment, versus you going out, you have your own place, you're living your own life, and you having children doing that. You just don't want to marry someone, and that's why I don't understand. You have children, you have the same baby mother, but you didn't choose to marry her because, I don't think that it really has anything to do, like Xandria said, it's an excuse. I don't think it really has anything to do with him not marrying, because then you wouldn't have, spreaded your seeds.
We have some comments that are saying that he was married in 2005 all the way to 2013. He's divorced now. His wife was Angelica Zachary, and they had 2 children together. So
then that doesn't make sense. He lied.
I can understand if, right, he's like, I've been there, done that. I'm going to focus my time on my family now and my mom, right? But that's just not what his statement came out as. So.
Yeah. I mean, but just looking at the dynamic, so he's saying he wants to wait, or his mother. Let's just look at the phrase. His mother is his number one girl. You do have immigrant families who do seem to do that, have that same type of dynamic, where you have these sons that care for their parents. Mothers live with them, or they bring them into the home, and they're caring. Oh, but you were saying because they've already married. Is that what you were saying, T? Is that where it was?
Well, I didn't know that they were married. I knew that they had children, but I didn't know that they had married.
Okay. All right.
Well, I'm sure when you have large families like that all live together, and in the Latin community too, right? A lot of the time your grandparents live with you.
Yeah.
But there's still a balance of, hey, this is my grandma, this is my mom, this is my girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, husband. Everybody has their place. So.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, definitely. And Xandria, you come from a healthy family structure, so you would know that mother, father, children, and then, I'm sure at the point where you want to get married, then you're going to leave the house, and you're not going to be like, oh, I don't want. Of course, you can't say I don't want to get married, but maybe your brother. I don't even see your brother saying, oh, I don't want to get married. I'm going to stay home and be my mother's baby boy forever. Like. Right. In a healthy structure, a healthy family environment, I don't see how this even is, how it even works. Like, how is it even thought?
Your parents are always the first people you love, right? The first people any child should love. That's normal. But your relationship with a significant other is different than your relationship with your parents. Yeah. And you have to have that balance. Nobody likes when either side oversteps the other. So.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will continue to check the comments regarding that. So even after the show airs, please continue to comment on this topic. We may bring it up in next week's show. All right. So this brings us to the end of the show. Thanks for watching. Please continue the conversation by checking our YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, also Instagram, and subscribe. That way you get up-to-the-minute content when we post, and we appreciate the support. We are an independent media, and each time you subscribe, it helps make our voice that much stronger. We are a necessary voice in news and entertainment. Again, check us out online at www.metroconservativemedia.com. We look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, count your blessings and live a life of purpose. Good night.